Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Barracks, the podcast where service ends, but the story begins. And today I'm thrilled to have Gavin Stone, ex-intelligence operative and international best-selling author, with lots of titles under his book. Hi.
Hello, thank you for having me here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and I think we're gonna jump straight in because your story's a remarkable one, really. Where did you start? Where was childhood for you?
Childhood, oh wow! So I grew up in the Midlands in Wolverhampton, and but with my parents kind of moved around a lot, mainly backwards and forwards between the south coast and back to Wolverhampton again. Every time they moved away, they missed family, and then they come back, and then they'd come back and think, "Of we made a mistake. We want to be back down south." So we were doing a lot of that, up and down the country, in and out of different schools and different areas, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, what initially sort of attracted you to going on your career path? I mean, was it something you watched when you were a kid? You were into James Bond, or was it just by chance?
It was completely accidental, although it wasn't through the traditional route that so many people kind of tend to take these days. Usually, somebody entering in the world of intelligence, they go through college or university and they get a tap on the shoulder, but it's usually a talent spotter that has seen them, that has a connection that can say, hey, there's somebody here who I think's a bit useful, might be able to serve the country. For me, it was completely accidental. And more to the point, I started at the very, very bottom, and it came from a knock on the door one day. And a friend of mine who I went to school with, he just said, Gavin, you're one of the most resourceful people I know. He said, I need to find somebody. I can't find them. Can you help me? And I said, yeah, sure. Just favour for a friend. Didn't think too much of it. Found the person very, very quickly, and that was it. And I did my favour and went home and didn't think too much of it. And it was around about the beginning of the next month that he popped round and knocked on the door, and he said, "Can I come in?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "There you go." And he handed me this envelope full of cash, and I just looked like, "Okay, what's that for?" And he said, "You remember that person that you helped me find?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "We were doing something called process serving." He said, "And that is your half for helping me out with that job." And I just looked at this envelope full of cash and I was like, got any more of them people you want finding? And that was where it's kind of started. And I, like I say, I did everything a bit backwards because I started off in the private sector and worked my way into working for the government. So it started off with private investigations, which led to marital affairs, which led to fraud investigations, then government fraud. That got me through the doors with on the books, as it were, with certain government contracts. And then that went to surveillance contracts and so on and so forth. And then eventually I managed to work my way into the right people in the right areas. And I did work on the human intelligence side of things and kind of created a space for myself, as it were, using a lot of what they'd taught me in order to be able to kind of get to past the gatekeeper and get to where I needed to be. So, and that's kind of a 20 plus year, kind of wrapped up in 30 seconds, but there's a lot more to it than that. But it was like just do one thing, and I got good at it, and it got recognised, and they said, "Oh, you're pretty good at that. Would you like to try this?" And and it just kind of escalated from there.
Yeah. So yeah, it is backwards
Yeah,
because most people they'll do MI5, MI6, special forces, then they'll retire and then they'll get into the world where you kind of started at,
exactly.
albeit maybe middle of the range type.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is backward. But I guess that's the thing with the intelligence services, they seek out the best, and it doesn't matter what route they come from as long as when we find them.
And I think part of it was because I kept pestering like the people I knew. And to be fair, I think what they did, they were trying to give me almost impossible tasks, probably just to get rid of me, to stop me from pestering them. So they gave me kind of things to go off and do. And what happened was I kept coming back with good results. And then they were like, I think they kind of paid attention when this was more than, at first they might have thought it was a fluke. And then when I had 2 or 3 wins straight after one another, and they were like, "Hang on, this guy actually might be pretty useful." I think they were just, like I say, trying to fob me off, and they kind of said, we might be able to put him to good use, and that was when they started perhaps to take me a little bit more seriously. And I actually started getting more involved in the human intelligence gathering side of it, which was absolutely amazing. I loved every moment of it.
Yeah, and obviously the world that you started in was the world where we didn't have this massive internet and resources and stuff like that. So it was really kind of old school
Very
methods
much.
that you were using.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, a lot of things I had to learn on the job or as I was going, and I learned the hard way. So I'm thankful for a few great mentors that helped me out along my journey. But yeah, we did things. I mean, back then, trackers, not only were they huge, but they cost a fortune. We didn't have like air tags or anything like back then. And there was little things we could do. For example, like if I wanted to know what time somebody leaves in the morning, in order to be able to not sit and do a stakeout all through the night, we used to get like a wristwatch and take the strap off and just leave the main working parts, the bezel of the watch, and we'd place it under the back tire on the passenger side. Just tuck it under, and what would happen is when the car drove off, it'd crush the watch, and it would obviously stop working. And whatever time it crushed the watch out, whatever time it kind of pressed the hands down on the watch, was roughly around about what time that person left in the morning. So if it was kind of crushed at 7:15, that was it. I'd just show up at 7 o'clock, wait for that person to leave, and then I could either follow them part or all of the way and work along those lines. So if we'd have had the technology now where I could just little magnet and put something under his
Yeah.
car, this tiny little thing size of a coin, it would have definitely made my life a lot easier.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's you had to, if you like that coin out phrase, think outside the box.
Mm,
In those days, you just nothing was technology reliant at all, was it?
exactly.
Uh, so when you eventually sort of moved into the government department, what was the training like? Or, I know you probably can't say much, but was it quite intense, or did you just sort of slot in and go on little courses to get yourself up to speed to their processes?
So what I've done over the years, I've done a lot of what they call TDYs or temporary duties. And this could be anything from covering from one man for the day while he's off sick, right up to holiday cover, vacation cover, and that kind of thing when somebody's away for several weeks, or even one-off 3, 4, and 5 month contracts and that kind of thing. So I've done a little bit of all sorts. Now, occasionally, it's been a case of, well, look, I'm not trained to do that job, and they've said, right, okay, go to this particular place. It might be a barracks in Portsmouth, or it might be even a private company on occasions where they'll say, get the training done for this job, come back and we'll set you up. So over the years, I've been lucky because I've worked with different allied governments. So whether it's been over in America where I've had training, or over in the UK or in Europe, I've been really, really lucky to have little bits of everything. So as I say, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. So I've probably had more training than most, in the sense of I've done a little bit of everything, but not extensive training in anything. That being said, I'm working on a really, really exciting project now with some friends. This is kind of the first time ever anything like this has been done before. And what we're doing, we're taking the intelligence officer psychological training, and we are basically getting rid of all the flash and the bang that they don't need, and we're putting it down into a 2-day event where people who want to learn how to think like a spy can come along, and they'll be given so much in the way of advantages to what they're going to learn and what they're going to know. So, and the beauty of this is it's not singular agency. We've taken a bit from MI6, a bit from CIA, a bit from KGB, Mossad, blah, 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 and we've just chosen the best of the best, packaged it all together. We've had an army barracks down in Dorset where we're going to deliver it, and we've got people coming from all these different agencies and branches around the world where we're going to teach all the kind of things they need to know, from mental resilience, leadership, success by design, everything that is going to give them such a just a huge advantage in everything they do in life. So it's called Spy Q. Spy and the letter Q, not Spike.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, we've called it SpyQ, and like I said, this is a pioneering new thing that puts all the training together that intelligence officers receive, and it's going to be like kind of something that anybody attending, they will literally leave a different person, a transformation beyond words.
Yeah, that sounds extremely exciting and interesting for lots of people who've never obviously been in that world. And it's interesting because each military, as you know fully, works slightly differently. We might have the same core operations. You can only follow someone in a car by following them in a car. Well, maybe not now with drones and stuff.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. It's the basics, the little things, how the CIA do different things and MI5 do different things is quite intriguing, and I'm sure that's going to be a exceptional event. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And we'll obviously throw up where people can find that
Wonderful, thank you.
afterwards. Yeah, so that's in Dorset. Did you say Dorset?
Yeah, Dorset. The event's in October, but the tickets are on sale now on the website. So yeah, it's I'm really really excited for it. We've got we've got CIA knocks coming over and counting.
If I wasn't going to Nepal, I'd probably come down and say hi.
Yeah.
So your sort of expertise, which always intrigues me, because I've not had. I think I can read people, and I know human behaviour, but it's definitely not an expertise of mine. And that's one of your expertise, isn't it? Body language.
Yeah. So through the trade, I've actually inadvertently ended up becoming ranked 9th in the world body language expert. So it was not something. Yeah, loads of people do that. It was not something that I kind of set out to do, as it were. It was just something that purely by kind of reputation and ability and that kind of thing, it ended up kind of happening. So I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm extremely grateful for the title, but it wasn't something I was ever aiming at. But yeah, I wrote a book, so don't scream at me for plugging this book here, How to Tell If Someone Is Lying. But the title I know is absolutely awful. It was based on a Google search. It was a way to cheat the algorithms. And I think that's what really, really helped. And that's one of the things I do in a lot of because I now teach and train in the government and private sector. So I kind of teach deception detection, body language, and kind of combined communication analysis.
Yeah, so give us, I'm probably going off script, but give us one tip to tell if someone's lying. I know it's a multiple accused, but what's the biggest tell?
I think the best one that people are going, and this might surprise a lot of people, because when a person lies, their cortisol increases and the stress rates go up. And this will obviously change on the severity of the lie. So, for example, if I say to you, did you nick a bite of my Big Mac or a couple of my fries? You probably say no, and it wouldn't really kind of affect you physiologically in any way. But if you were kind of accused of, say, cheating on a spouse or a murder or some kind of crime that had a high ramification for what you've done, then the cortisol levels are going to be a lot higher. When that happens, there are several physiological reactions, one of which a person's blink rate increases. So if you can imagine a person relaxing, whether they're reading a book, watching a film, chilled out of a night time, they've got a very slow kind of blink rate. I'm sure you've seen it on animated movies where somebody's kind of falling asleep and that blink rate is very slow and very steady, and it's not very frequent. If somebody is under a huge amount of stress, their blink rate increases exponentially. So therefore, for example, if you ask somebody a question where the stress rates are reasonably high, you'll see their blink rate up and down and up and down and up and down and a very, very rapid blink rate. And if you count that over 6 seconds, how many times they blink, and then just multiply it by 10, you've got their blink rate per minute, and then that gives you an idea, of whether it's high or low.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Obviously, it depends on the person because you get some people who blinking all the time, and yeah, so that's a really good little tip for everyone.
So,
To
and of
see
course,
who's at the big mouth.
the most important thing, obviously, is to baseline somebody first to find out. I mean, my wife, for example, she blinks quite frequently anyway, so it's something that you have to find out what's normal for that person. I have another friend of mine, he's former SBS, and he doesn't blink at all, like ever. So maybe once in a while, if there's a sudden light change or something like that, like a firework goes off or something. But other than that, he's he doesn't blink. So you have to know what is normal for that person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah, incredible. I could probably talk all day about body language. But what can you share a memorable sort of moment where you used that skill by detecting, clues and stuff from a subject or a target where that then led to, bringing them in or solving a crime or whatever you were doing at the
Yeah.
time?
So what you have to do, and for anybody who knows the routine, I'm going to probably bore them a little bit, and I apologise in advance for that. But for those who don't know the routine, there's a kind of a system that you have to go through in the world of intelligence. And when you've arranged to meet your asset, one of the first things to do is make sure that nobody's following you and you're putting them in danger. So you do like your SDR or surveillance detection route. And that is just basically a series of maneuvers through a city that will allow you to become completely confident in the fact that you're surveillance free. And I say that in very lightheartedly, in the sense of, you can never be 100% confident that you're surveillance free. And even when you think you are, you've still got that niggling gut feeling, So, but, by the time you've done this particular surveillance detection route, you should be reasonably confident in the sense that there's nobody following you to the location where you have to meet your asset. Now, these locations, which in the movies get called a safe house, are usually quite simply a hotel suite where you'll go to meet somebody. They will have done a very similar set of maneuvers to make sure they're surveillance free, and you will teach them how to do this so that when you meet, you both know that you've not been followed to the location and compromised. If in doubt, you just cancel the whole thing, and it's as simple as that. And that's for both parties. Now, when you get there, there is a set of kind of protocols that you have to go through, just standard questions that you have to ask. And for us guys, it's a bit like, when somebody reads the terms and conditions of signing a loan agreement or a car on finance or some crazy thing like that. And, somebody starts reeling it off and you think, oh, yeah, just get to the point where they say, do you agree? So you can say yes. It's very much like that for us. We've said it that many times, so we get used to the reactions of somebody going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And what this is all to do with is, do you believe you got followed here, or do you believe it's safe for you to continue with this meeting? Have you been approached by any other foreign intelligence agencies or anybody else to share information, or does anybody else know about the fact that you're giving information to us? And then you do all these series of questions, and then you also, the first thing is to set up the next meeting immediately. So you know straight away that even if it gets cut short or everything goes totally wrong or there's a problem and you both have to get out of there a bit sharpish, your next meeting's already set up. And so I went to this meeting, and the asset is sitting in an armchair. I sat more or less diagonally opposite them, and I'm going through the usual, did this, did that, and he's sitting there, with a nodding nod, going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I said, has any other foreign intelligence agencies or anybody else asked you to share information with them as well? And instead of the usual no, he kind of went, no, I would never do anything like that. And I was like, oh, okay, that was different. And it really stood out. There was a whole bunch of things, and this is the most important thing you can know when it comes to reading somebody is there is no single telltale sign, or what we call the Pinocchio effect. You're looking for a cluster of differences. So someone folding their arms on their own, it means nothing. But if they fold their arms, while they look away, while they stutter, while their blink rate goes up, breath location changes, pull their feet in, all these cluster of actions together, that's when you kind of, say, something's wrong there, a little red flag. So, yeah, I noticed that action. I didn't say anything at the time. I carried on with the meeting. I put it in the contact report and so on and so forth. And I put my suspicions as to what was happening. And it did turn out that he had been approached by another foreign intelligence agency and that he was giving them information as well. So we used it to our advantage, which was great because it ended up giving us the ability to feed information, in a way that it went back to another foreign intelligence service, and they kind of got hold of what we wanted them to know rather than what they actually wanted to know.
Yeah, it's just incredible, isn't it? It's interesting. You mentioned about the clusters because it it's not just one thing, isn't it? I think if you've ever been cheated on or had something happen to you, which is probably a real life experience for a lot of people, or lying, then it's not just the one thing, is it? It's one thing that maybe thinks, oh, that's a bit strange, but then it's the third and the fourth and the fifth thing that then leads you to, yeah, that's happened.
And that's it. A lot of people, women are quite intuitive when it comes to this kind of thing, and there is a difference. And none of this is sexist, by the way. This is just down to science. But
Yeah,
when men are kind of analysing somebody, there is only something like 4 parts of the brain that light up and show activity when they're trying to read body language or analyse somebody. With women, I think it's something like 16 different parts of the brain that light up. So, they have a massive advantage over us when it comes to, being able to read people. And sometimes they may not know exactly what it is that's giving them that gut feeling. It might be all subconscious, but they know something's wrong, hence the kind of, belief in women's intuition, as it were. So a lot of the time, if you were to record an argument between a couple where she suspects a man of cheating, and she might spot one thing, like it might be folding his arms, for example, and that's the thing she spots. But the other half a dozen things that she doesn't spot, like the fact that he looked down and looked to the left, and that his feet changed angle, and the other little bits and pieces, there's something that if you were to have that recording and then break this down bit by bit and show them in hindsight, it would all of a sudden make sense, especially when you point out a lot of the reasons why somebody's feet direction would change or why this would happen or that would happen. And then all of a sudden it'd be like, okay, now I understand. It wasn't just, it was a whole cluster of things that I was seeing, but only one that kind of consciously I was aware of.
yeah. So what was you was sixth in the world?
Um,
Well, did you say?
Sorry, say that again.
Did you say you was sixth in the world at body language interpreting? 9. So were the top ones women then?
No, funnily enough, which there are some women in the top 30s,
Yeah.
and it's a great little community because I'm actually friends with a lot of the other people, within the kind of top 30, as it were. And it's a bit of a funny world because the rest of them, they're great and communicating, kind of, we collaborate. And I talk to a lot of them a lot. We've got group chats and messages and things that we send backwards and forwards. And even between us, we might say, I saw this the other day. What do you think? And, we'll kind of, share information, as it were. And then there's the odd one or two who are completely the opposite. They see you as competition. And like, I can't talk to you.
Yeah.
You're one of them. So, it's a bit of a weird, but overall, it's a good community, and it's it's a good bunch of people.
Yeah. Um, are those meetings done without screens on then, so you don't have any tells? Is that how it works?
Yeah, no. When people ask me about this, because and I had this a while ago, it's and I know with your background, you'll probably be reasonably familiar with how this works. I had an interview with 3 high-ranking military officers, and they tend to do it so they're in groups of 3 on the slightly higher chairs, and you're sat
Yeah.
kind of a distance away on a slightly smaller chair, so you feel a bit inferior and a little bit intimidated. So I know, anybody who's been through this, they know the situation. And I remember sitting on this chair, looking at these 3 officers, and they were asking me a whole bunch of questions, and about 5 minutes in, they said, look, we're going to let you know we're all feeling really uncomfortable because we know about your background and what you do and who you are and that kind of thing. We all kind of feel like we need to sit on our hands here. So to put them at ease, I turned around and said, look, I want to try and explain to you that just because I have the ability to read doesn't mean I do, and doesn't mean I even want to. And I said and I've said this before to people: if you walk past a newspaper stand in the city and you see all the different newspapers available, and you have the ability to be able to read every headline, every article, every word on every page if you really, really wanted to, but most people don't want to, including myself. All I see is a newspaper stand. So unless something really, really stands out, I'm not looking for it, and I'm really not that interested in it. If I analysed everybody every day, I would drive myself
Yeah.
insane. So a lot of the times I kind of switch it off, leave it in the background, and I only ever use it if I really, really need to, or if I spot something that stands out that I think, oh, hang on, I could be in danger here, or
Yeah.
my family could be in danger here. I need to change the
Which,
situation.
which is like incredibly important. I remember when I first got out and started doing CP, close protection, in the US, and the team I was with handed me a book called The Gift of Fear, which you've
Oh
probably
yeah,
heard of,
yeah, Gavin Stone.
and it was like, read that, and that is something that I've actually taken kind of throughout, because it is. It's like that sixth sense, isn't it? So you don't have to have it turned on all the time. But as you said, with danger or your family, or you notice something, then you've got to not leave it to one side, and you've got to start paying attention to cues and that type of thing. So, but you would be insane if you were constantly analysing everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, what happens is that people like us who are kind of trained, as it were, to be able to react and get off the X, as it's known in the trade. A lot of the time, we see people around us. I mean, if you take the Vegas shootings, for example, I don't know what people expected exactly, but when the first gunshots were fired, a lot of the crowd, even though there were people dropping down and being shot, stood around looking to see where it was coming from and what it was, and they
Yeah,
were in disbelief for so long. Other people, on the other hand, who were trained, moved straight away and got to cover, or and whatever the case may be. And this is one of the biggest issues that so many people have. Is for a while they've got a curiosity in them where they want to know what's going on, even if they know something's wrong. And what they don't realise, they're putting their lives in danger to satisfy that curiosity. Whereas they really should be getting off the X, getting to cover, getting out of the area, whatever the case may be, and getting their family out the way. But they're too busy looking. Was that really gunshots? Where did it come from? Is it fireworks? And that kind of moment of disbelief is what could end up costing them their lives.
yeah, and so I don't think social media helps, because people are so engrossed in capturing the moment to
Yeah.
be whatever. So back with the MOD then. What was your most dodgy or scariest or dice with death moments, if you're allowed to talk about it, obviously?
Yeah, so I mean, there's been a mix, because I've actually worked for the MOD in different capacities, and at the same time, I actually spent the majority of my career as a contractor. So, and that was where the more fun stuff happened, because when you're working for the MOD, which when I did it, directly as a civil servant, it was an absolute nightmare. So my career, kind of, working for the MOD as a contractor, remember, a lot of the time I was really, really jealous of the full-time, or envious, should I say, of the full-time employees. They had things I didn't have. They had holiday pay and sick pay and, pensions and this kind of thing. And I just remember thinking I'd love that security, because for me, if I didn't get a contract, if I didn't work, I didn't eat, it was as simple as that. So I worked my way into, over many years, into getting into bed with the right people, as it were, and until I ended up being put on the books as a civil servant. Didn't do it very long, because I absolutely hated it. I soon found out that the grass wasn't greener on the other side, and it had gone from one extreme to the other with bureaucracy. And that was when I went back into the private sector and kind of worked, back in more so on the training and teaching side of things. So to answer your question, the fun stuff, a lot of that was more as a contractor, because I had a free hand. they would give me a task or an assignment and say, this is what we want you to do. And we don't care how you do it. We don't care what you do to achieve it. Just go out and get it done, and then bill us at the end, as it were. So that was where the more dicey stuff happened, because that's what the Americans, well, I suppose MI6 as well, call a knock, a non-official cover. Some people know it as commercial cover. So you don't have the diplomatic protection if you go into a foreign country. If you're entering a country under diplomatic protection, then basically if you get caught, spying or in that area, then you get what they call PNG'd, or persona non grata, which basically means you go back to your home country, and you're just not welcome to come into the target country again. If you're a knock or a non-official cover and you're there just as a civilian and you get caught, it's a totally different world. They're playing for keeps. You're going to prison. You're going to go through a really, really, really tough time. So, there has been a few different occasions where I may have been in country and had a lot of near misses, and one slight little change or one little thing, one way or the other, could have really, really ended the story in a very different way, and all it would have taken on one occasion was for the police officer to say, "Can I check in the trunk of the car, please?" And that had I'd have been, yeah, well, I wouldn't be here having this conversation now. But luckily he kind of said, carry on, that's it, and I just played the dumb tourist. So, but yeah, there are ways where we're kind of taught, maybe not officially, how to bribe a police officer without bribing a police officer. We're going to go too deep into the details, but you have to make out that you have to. There can be no arrogance or ego. You can't get out and go, "What did I do wrong?" And you see a lot of this confrontation. You have to be really apologetic. You have to eat humble pie. You have to be, "Look, I'm really sorry. I'm not from this country. And is there a fine I can pay?" And perhaps get a little bit of cash in, not all your cash, and just say, "Do I pay a fine? I'm happy to pay a fine," and make it look like you need that deniability, so that if anybody says, "Well, you were trying to bribe the police officer," you say, "No, I thought I might have a fine, and that was what I was trying to do." If the police officer says, "Well, yes, $100 or whatever," then you give them the money, and that's it. And you say, "Oh, thank you very much, officer. I'll get out your way," and off you go. And in certain countries that will work, and they'll let you on your way. On the other hand, if it does go pear-shaped, then you've just made things a hell of a lot worse for yourself. So you have to use a little bit of dynamic assessment and make a judgment call.
Yeah. Yes, a lot of narrow scrapes, but look on your side. And I think I've got a lot of stories that start with "I nearly died," but so yeah. So you eventually took to writing, and your first novel was The Unforgiven Spy, and I believe it got a lot of criticism because of the realism. So did that in, apart from getting through that part of it, did that give you any sort of reflective sort of writing? What I'm probably trying to say is, did it restrict you on your next novels?
Not really, and I'll tell you for why. I remember when I was writing it, I thought back to Peter Wright and the Spycatcher many years ago, and what happened was with Peter Wright, who was former MI5. He wrote Spycatcher, and it was threatened to be banned, and it went straight to number one. Of course, as anything does, which I later found out unofficially that was pretty much orchestrated. So fair play to him. He used that to his advantage. But yeah, so I thought, okay, let's see if I can do something similar. So The Unforgiven Spy, I filled it with that much tradecraft. I mean, there's masses of tradecraft in it, and yes, it has had a lot of criticism because of not only the kind of realism in it, but also the tradecraft that's in there. But it didn't get banned. So I tried harder with book two. So I really went to town in book two as well. and that didn't get banned either. So I'm now writing book 3. So wish me luck. I'm going all out in book 3. You know, I'm going.
Trying to get it banned.
Yeah, I'll get there eventually. Or I'll end up in military prison.
That's interesting because I've had a friend just produce a book, and his tagline is the book that they nearly banned. So I'm wondering whether he's going on your
Probably, yeah. It
probably.
seems to have the appeal as soon as something like is threatened to be banned, and I went all out in there. I mean, I even used, I give lines in there giving away what Freemasons use to identify other Freemasons without people around them knowing, and things like that. You know, and so I put so much stuff in there. Hoping that somebody somewhere would get their attention and they go, "We got to get this off the shelf."
Yeah. So obviously you've got to sell books. You've got to live. That's how it works, isn't it? But how do you try to balance that? Because obviously you know that releasing too much is going to put people's lives at risk that are still doing a job. So where do you find that balance of keeping it safe?
So quite simply, one of my first rules that I said when I'm writing this is, even though I'm going to fill it with tradecraft, I'm never ever going to put in there the exact methods of making an explosive device, an IED, or anything like that, because there's no reason at all that anybody should or could want to for any decent or good purpose. Simple as that. People could get killed. They could get killed even trying to make it. So I thought, I'm not. That's the one thing I'm going to leave out. Because I thought I don't want one day. I don't mind being in the headlines for book gets banned, but I don't want to be in the headlines for, man reads Gavin Stone's book and then blows up his family because he tried to copy the. So that was something I thought, I'm not doing that. That's out there. I won't talk at all about any kind of current operations or systems that would in any way hinder what intelligence officers are doing in different parts of the world. That's something that is a definite no-go. But the kind of stuff that is in there, whether it's bypassing cameras or alarms or picking locks or, kind of different bits and pieces, on how to avoid being followed or how, I can't even think there's that much in there, that has not, I don't believe, been publicly available before. So it really is an interesting kind of read for people. In book 3, however, there is a slight exception where I talk about how to make a improvised hydrogen bomb. However, I will say that there is a caveat to this. Not all the instructions are there. So it's a bit like saying to somebody, you get some eggs and flour and kind of mix them up and you put them in the oven for a while and you get a cake. Yes, it's true, but without knowing the oven temperature and without knowing the rest of the ingredients and how to do it and what to do it and how long for, you don't get the cake. So, that's kind of what I've done with the improvised hydrogen bomb. It's, even though I've hinted at what you need, I haven't given, specific details, as it were. So, again, no need for anybody to ever make one, as far as I'm concerned. No. So yeah, with that in mind, there is a hell of a lot of tradecraft in there, and the way I've written it as well, for anybody experienced, they can read the novel. It comes to a tradecraft section, and it will tell you what that tradecraft is. And if you're an experienced spy-fi reader, you can skip past it and stick to the story. If you're not, then you've got the exact reasons why something's done, why it's not done another way, all the details of that particular bit of tradecraft. Or if you want to skip the story altogether and just read it as a field manual, you can just go through and read all the tradecraft sections.
Yeah, that's a unique way to write, I think, because I've not seen that before. And kind of as you've said, there's a lot in Hollywood, there's a lot open source, so you're keeping it real, but not to endanger those operatives that are still out there, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. So, and it does dispel some of the myths as well, the kind of common Hollywood myths of what's going on the big screen. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the time you'd be working with assets and influencing them and stuff, and that takes a long time, doesn't it, to build up that relationship till they trust you, whether they know that they're being manipulated, or whether they're an agent and you're handling them. So at what point and how do you feel, because you're going to know them really well, so what sort of responsibilities do you feel for them, and how do you sort of get over that in your daily life now you've left them behind wherever they are?
Yeah, so I love that. That's a loaded question, and there's so much to unpack in that. But so what I'll do, and I'm trying not to deliberately sound nebulous, but you will have different systems and approaches for different targets. So the way MI6 do it is they will look at three factors, which is motivation, access, and security. And it's quite simply, what will motivate that person to get secrets for us? Do they have access to the kind of secrets we want? And is it safe and secure for them to actually, provide us with those, or, are they going to be putting themselves in danger? Which is actually the one that's generally ignored. And and so therefore you're going to build up a profile of this particular individual. Now, the Americans have a system at CIA that they call MICE, sometimes called RICE, which is money, ideology, compromise, and ego. And then that changes to reward, ideology, compromise, and ego. And again, they change compromise to coercion, and it gets messed around for political reasons and whatever, but it's all pretty much the same thing. So, the reward or the motivation might not necessarily be financial. It could be, hospital care for a family member. It could be any number of things, even down to the fact that they, basically hate their boss, and you can use it as leverage, which I'll tell you a story about that one off screen one day. But yeah, so there are loads of different ways you can motivate this person in order to get what you want. But the most important thing when you're building that relationship, and I can't stress this enough, is simply empathy. If you're not looking at it from their point of view, and what they want, and help, and doing something to help them, then they've got no reason to help you. And it has to be genuine empathy. You can't just look and say, oh, well, that person, he wants this, so if we offer him this, then he'll do that for us. In order to build a genuine, solid relationship, you need to kind of put yourself in that person's shoes, and you need to build a genuine state of empathy and say, what can I do to actually make this person's life better? It's not just leverage to get what I want. How can I, take this person under my wing and do something really, really worthwhile and good for them? And when you get to that, when you get to that level of understanding somebody, and they can see that you are actually trying to do something positive for them and that's going to benefit them, then they will pretty much do almost anything you ask of them. And as long as you're not doing it to achieve that as an end goal, then yeah, you can literally say, look, I need this, can you get it for me? And they'll say, no problem, leave it with me. So it sounds very manipulative, and I suppose in a way it is. But at the same time, like I say, this isn't just about manipulating people or tricking people into doing a job for you. A lot of the assets that I had, I was very, very, very close to. They're risking their lives for me. I would have put my life on the line for them. And have had very, very, very good relationships with those individuals too.
Yeah, and I guess, as yourself as the operative, you've also got the bigger picture of potentially, how many lives getting that information is going to save, and what implications it has if you don't get it. So the some people might view it as, callous and hard, and but it's the bigger picture, which you as the operative may not have the bigger picture. Someone else may have the bigger picture, but you've certainly got a different layer to their understanding, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
And of course, this is why human intelligence is always going to be invaluable, because at the end of the day, yes, there's technology that can intercept calls and emails and signals, and you've got all the different SIGINT and everything from around the world, which is great, but that's not the same as human intelligence. So if you were to take, Putin, for example, who is discussing with his closest allies in the room, the people that he trusts more than anybody. They're going to be having a conversation about what he should do next. Whether he should invade a particular area, whether he should move back, whether he should send troops here, blah, blah, blah. These kind of conversations are only ever going to be had with his most trusted and close allies. These are not conversations that are ever going to be sent in emails or written down in files or talked about openly. And of course, what that means is, yes, your email might give you a certain amount of information that you've intercepted, but you don't know what Putin is thinking. You don't know what his plans or his thoughts are, and usually by the time an email has been sent to confirm something, you're too late. You need to know, what's going through his mind, and the only people who know that are the very, very close circle of friends that he has around him or associates that he has around him. So, because they're the ones he has a conversation with, and therefore these are the kind of people that we are looking at wanting to, infiltrate and get information from. Now, just one thing where they said right now he's thinking of doing X, that could cost hundreds, maybe even thousands of lives in a particular area, and whether that's in Ukraine or any other country, or even the UK, for example. With that information, it allows us to put precautionary safeguards in place. So if he was thinking of perhaps a UK invasion at any point, how would he do it? Where would he come from? What would his angle of attack be? And so on and so forth. And when we've got that information, that allows us to act on that and say, right, if this was the direction he came from, what do we do? How do we keep as many civilians safe as possible?
Yeah, and that is, as you highlighted, the incredible, the incredible work that the intelligence services and the military do, and without people ever knowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we get criticised, or they get criticised when something goes bang, but it's all the other things that have been stopped, and that's what everyone should always look back on and be thankful for when anything does happen. It's there's so much other stuff going on behind the background, and the operators are human.
Yeah.
So,
and of course, people don't realise that there are, a lot of the time there's something crazy like 100 attempted attacks on the UK a week. So when you look at the amount of work that they're doing, now don't get me wrong, some of these things might be a couple of students in their basement trying to cook something up just to blow their school up or something crazy like that. Not all of them are serious. Some of them are lone wolves. Some of them are amateurs, and whatever else. So it's not always high level attacks, but the amount of attacks that have to be prevented by the security service is, is really a lot to kind of try, talk about spinning plates. And of course, sometimes occasionally you have your attention on the wrong thing, and one slips through the net, and that's when everybody screams and says, oh, you should be doing your job, and they don't realise the amount of work that's actually done by the intelligence agencies is a massive, huge amount.
yeah, it is incredible the work that everyone does in those departments. Every part of the team as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody is equally as important.
Yeah. So I could literally speak for hours because it's so interesting. We'll have to get you on a part two.
Okay, I'll be up for that.
So you briefly talked about what's coming next. So you've got your next book, which you hope to be banned.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
And after that, have you got that creative mind going for the book number 4 or 5? And
yeah, because originally it was only ever meant to be a trilogy, and parts 1 and 2 are out. Part 3 is kind of going through the motions now, and as I've been writing part 3, I've kind of slipped little Easter eggs in there, because there is, in the back of my mind, there is a little possibility of a part 4 and 5 that could follow. So, and it seems to be growing in popularity. So I am going to kind of look at having it as an ongoing series. There is another side project book that I'm writing as well, which, again, another fiction novel that's in the makings right now. It's a little bit of a slightly different approach, based on a private investigator in America. And then obviously the events that I've got doing, so far, the response to these training events has been absolutely phenomenal. So we've got limited spaces on these events, but tickets have started selling already, and I can't believe the amount of positive feedback I've had for this. So we are looking down the line at possibly doing more events and refining it and other bits and pieces as well. But for the moment, we're going to see how people take to part 1. Hopefully, we won't get banned by the Home Office from doing any more. So it might be everybody's only chance to get trained like a spy, as it were. And again, it's going to be down to the availability of the intelligence officers as well that are coming to help out with the training of it all. But hopefully there will be ongoing training available to the public.
What date was that again? I don't
So
think you said.
27th and 28th of October is the date of the event. And if people want to have a look at the website, it's SPY, and then the letter Q.co.uk. So spyq.co.uk. A lot of the information's on there, and there's phone numbers and email address and everything else. If they can't find what they're after, then get in touch and we'll help you out if we can.
Yeah, definitely. So no TV scripts coming on, or a Netflix series of Stone, the international spy, or something?
Yeah, I wrote a TV script with a friend of mine from MI6 not so long back, and we kind of we scribbled out the rough outline, and we shelved it, and then we pulled it out again, then we shelved it, and we pulled it out again, and it's been going on in the background for a while. But he's approached a TV production company, or like an agent for TV production, and they've expressed an interest. So it may happen, but I don't want to announce it and then it gets strung out for a long time, and then kind of either doesn't come to fruition, or or takes that long that people get bored of hearing from it. So we'll see. It might happen.
Yeah, well, you've got a lot going on, haven't you? So it's kind of watch this space, but that could be quite a cool little series, definitely. So I ask these questions to everyone, and I get some good responses. So, who was either your superhero when you were a child, or a role model? You said earlier you've had some good role models that has made a difference in your life.
Certainly. Well, I'm going to go with the obvious one, which is my dad. He's been the biggest role model in my life in many, many ways. He's taught me so much, and I just I know it sounds boring, and everybody should be like, "Oh, can't you pick somebody more exciting?" But he had a massive influence on my life in many ways, and I'll never be able to thank him enough for what he did there. So that's like the kind of the biggest influence role model wise. There's been a couple of others who there was an ex-Grenadier Guard who's passed away now, unfortunately. He's a good friend of mine, and he guided me through a lot of in life, and was a mentor to me in many ways. And after that, it was probably Darth Vader.
Darth Vader, that's a brilliant one. I've never heard that.
Well, you got to
That's
feel sorry
brilliant.
for the guy. He was just trying to restore order to the universe, and then somebody come and chopped his arms and legs off, and kind of rather inconsiderate, really.
Yeah. We can read into your psyche there, that's for sure. So what should we have talked about that we haven't?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I think a lot of people get the wrong impression when it comes to the intelligence world, and what we do, because it's all kind of shrouded in secrecy. People have very varied views of who we are and what we do. And I get it a lot when people say, so you're a spy. I go, yeah. And they go, no, you don't look like a spy. Oh, well, that's kind of handy. But the big thing is, and I've noticed over the years, especially in the kind of political arena, there has been this constant backward and forward of, oh, you're spying on the British public, you shouldn't be able to. We've had our hands tied in so many ways. We've been restricted with how we have to get. I mean, back when I was working in, we had to get something called a HOW, which was a Home Office warrant, in order to be able to, and again, it shows the age, tap a telephone line and things like that. And it was a real laborious thing to have to be able to try and do in order to get the evidence we needed. And it was crazy because they said, we'll get the evidence, we'll give you the warrant. And you say, well, we need the warrant to get the evidence. And so there was a lot of bureaucracy involved. And I can understand how people turn around and say, oh, well, you shouldn't be spying on people. We've got rights to privacy and whatever else. And I get that, But at the same time, on the other side of the fence, the minute a bomb goes off and people die, or something happens, or a tragedy, or people drive through a crowd, or there's a machete attack, or whatever it is this week, all of a sudden they say, well, why weren't you watching them? Why aren't you watching everybody? Why aren't you keeping your eye on these people? So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. So it really is difficult to try and justify sometimes what we do. Especially when it is kind of, when people get sick of hearing, national security, we can't tell you, or things like that, terminology like that. But, at the end of the day, if somebody isn't doing wrong, nobody's interested. We don't want to look at your cat pictures on your Google, kind of backed up photos. We don't want to look at your holiday snaps or anything else. We're not interested in that at all. We don't have the time and don't have the inclination. What people are interested in is somebody becoming radicalized. Is somebody going to a particular website several times? Are they vulnerable? Is somebody a threat to the national security or to the public in any way? And that's where, we have to sometimes peek into people's private lives, and if there's nothing there for us to worry about, then great, we sign it off, we go away, and it's case closed. If we do, and there's dangers and there's lots of red flags that we spot, then we have to then take that investigation further. And I think public opinion needs to kind of take that on board, with the fact that, it's not an easy job at the best of times, and because of what we do being so kind of secretive, people default to negativity and think the worst.
Yeah, that I love that. I mean, if people want to look at my socials and look at my then crack on, they might have a laugh because it's probably full of whippets and and people climbing mountains. But it's exactly that, isn't it? If you're not doing anything wrong, then you're not going to be getting looked at.
No, exactly.
We're not that important. Joe Public is not that important.
Exactly.
In that respect, for what they look at on their internet.
We want to protect you, not look at your Christmas photos.
Yeah, exactly, and get the bad people, and that's why it's needed, isn't it? And that job and that role and all of the people to keep the UK safe.
Exactly.
So the podcast is called Beyond the Barracks, and I know you're not military, but you did work within the same sort of family. So what did it mean to you when you left, and what have you carried forward?
Probably one of the most difficult roles in no longer being actively working, because for so many years I had to pretty much remain off the radar, be the grey man, be working in the shadows, as it were. So one of the hardest things for me was having no online presence, no social media presence, nobody knowing who I was, to then shining a big spotlight on myself, saying, hey, I've done a book and another one, and now I've got a YouTube channel, and hey, this is what I used to do. And of course, going from one extreme to the other was very, very difficult, because I'm trained to blend in and not be seen. And so, to then go against everything that I've ever been taught, to then throw myself in the public eye. It's been a very difficult transition, and going through that, it's been a real eye-opener as well as a challenge.
Yeah. Technology and social media is so big, and if you want to make a name for yourself, or like you're trying to sell courses and stuff, you've got to now be in that domain. Gone are the days where you can put a poster up and make some money. It really, isn't it? So yeah, I can imagine that's incredibly hard because, as you say, you were the grey man. You're about not being seen, and now all of a sudden, right? How do I be seen? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a really unique answer to that question.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
no.
so
Uh,
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I love that. But I mean, it's a unique, absolute unique career and life that you've led, and hopefully you can become a blockbuster movie or
that'd be nice.
TV show in the future, and you. I don't think I probably ever would say this to someone, but I hope your book gets banned.
Thank you. It's the best thing that could
and, and thanks so much for coming on. Hopefully I'll try and meet you. I'll try and get down and come to one of your workshops,
Yeah,
because
that'd
that
be wonderful if you
sounds like it's an inspirational day and an eye-opening day, and learning those skills and habits to use in your everyday life just to get on in the workplace is useful, isn't it?
for sure. The stuff that this has been used for by people, several different instances. I mean, I helped a friend who was at a loss achieve his dream of becoming a helicopter pilot using the methods I teach. I helped another friend get a 4-bedroom house for free. I helped another friend who now gets paid to drive a Ferrari that he couldn't afford to drive. There's another young lad who I inspired who couldn't travel the world because of budget constraints, who now gets paid to travel the world. So there's lots of different people I've given this kind of different methods and techniques of strategic thinking to, who are now utilizing it. They're thinking about things in a slightly different way. And because of it, their entire life has changed. Their dreams have literally become realized, and they're going out and living, and doing what they've wanted to do, mostly being held back by doubt or because of the fact that they just don't know how to make things happen a slightly different way to the norm. So, some really, really useful stuff there for people when they implement the strategies that we teach.
Yeah, incredible. So that's Spy Q, 27th, 28th of October. And the third book is out.
Oh, do you know what? I don't know. My editor has been sending it backwards and forwards, so
Soon.
yeah, so yeah, it's still being worked on. So, but the other two are available, and they're on audio book as well. And I will give a shout out to Scott Fleming, who is the narrator, who does an absolutely fantastic job. And with a name like Fleming, writing narrating a spy book, I couldn't ask for anyone better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been incredible. And I look forward to seeing what future brings for you in the spotlight now instead
Wonderful.
of in the shadows.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks.